I think it's all good. I'm here with Brooke Ingersol, and it's the MSU Autism Lab, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Um, I think it'd be cool to just kind of start out and tell us your background and kind of your story and how you got here.
Sure. Thank you. So I first got involved in this area when I was an undergraduate at University of Michigan. I think I was a senior in college, and I answered an ad in the school newspaper that was looking for in-home therapists, and this was really before the field of ABA had really disseminated widely, and so this was a local family who had hired an expert to come in and train people that they hired to come work with their son. And so I got exposed to the field and to autism sort of in a very personal way, working as an in-home therapist just for a family. And I found it incredibly rewarding, and I saw some real exciting gains for the child and the family. And so after I graduated from college, I was like, I really like this. And I moved to Atlanta. I was looking for something a little warmer. And I got involved at the Emory Autism Resource Center, which was also the place where the Walden Early Childhood Programs was, which was one of the first inclusive classrooms for young children on the spectrum. And that was really exciting because I got to see a very different type of intervention approach rather than a sort of a one-to-one in home.
Yeah.
This was an inclusive classroom, preschool classroom. I worked with 3 and 4 year olds. And it was also a sort of a model demonstration program, and with the goal of trying to help other preschool programs replicate that model. So my first year I worked in the classroom and did some consulting work with other preschools in the area that were hoping to include children with autism. And then my second year, I worked with their school inclusion program and helped facilitate inclusion in kindergarten and first grade classrooms. So that was a incredible experience that I feel like was very humbling, and I learned a lot at that point. And so I decided that I was really interested in kind of continuing in this area. So I went to graduate school at UC San Diego to work with Dr. Laura Schreibman, who was one of the developers of PRT, which is a more naturalistic approach to ABA. So she was kind of one of the leaders in that field of what is now kind of the NDBI, or naturalistic developmental behavioral intervention space. And I did my degree with her. And then after I graduated, I was interested in uh, really working on trying to expand access to intervention services. So I moved to Portland, and I got a job as a program. Basically, I got a job at a speech and hearing clinic. And I was kind of hired in along with another person who is a speech pathologist, Anna Dvorak, who was we were both hired to kind of develop an autism program for the speech clinic that didn't really have one. Obviously, they served autistic children, but they didn't have a more formalized program. So they hired us to do that. And what we found was really the need in the community was for parent mediated intervention or parent coaching intervention. So at that time, there was starting to be some real infrastructure around supporting community-based programs for autism, but they were all very therapist led.
Yeah.
and and so we really saw an area of need there, and really we're trying to create materials that would allow those community providers to do parent mediated intervention well. So that was really the two of us working together over the first couple years I was there. Really helped develop out our parent mediated intervention program, which is Project Impact. So we kind of got started there, and then after working there for a number of years, I realized that we really needed to be doing some additional research to support the program. And so I ended up taking a research position or a clinical position at Michigan State University, where I direct the Autism Research Lab. And so our lab is really focused on trying to um, develop and research and disseminate evidence-based interventions that are really community viable. So with this sort of focus on interventions that can be easily moved into community settings, and making sure that they're effective there.
Are there other programs around the country doing the same thing, or are you guys kind of out on an island here doing your own thing? And
Well, I think there's been, and this has been very exciting. Really over the course of my career, an increasing recognition of the importance of um, more naturalistic approaches to intervention. So there was a paper that was published in 2015 that was led by my former graduate advisor that was really kind of foundational in bringing together a number of different approaches. So Project Impact is the one I've worked on. It's one of them, but there's also pivotal response training or PRT, incidental teaching, the Early Start Denver model or ESDM, Jasper. So there are a number of different intervention programs that use similar principles, which is a blending of developmental principles with ABA. And so starting around 2015, there was a recognition that we have a number of different programs that really share a lot more than they are different. So there are other groups that are doing that. And I really see over the last maybe 10 years, a greater use of these more naturalistic approaches, and they're really starting to um, be used in the community, which is excellent. And also, I would say I've also seen an increase in the use of parent-mediated intervention or parent coaching intervention and recognition that families need to be an active member of the research team, both for the sake of the child, but also for the sake of the family.
yeah, what does the lab look like then? How do you guys function? And are you bringing people in from all over? Is it more focused on students or local community?
Yeah, so I've been at MSU since 2007, and the projects that we've worked on have varied over time. So some of our early work was really focused on doing um, what I would consider like efficacy research, really. So trying to understand if the intervention that we developed, Project Impact, worked well and worked the way we thought it was going to work. So we did a lot of our early research in the lab where we would bring in community families. And we had undergraduate research assistants that were trained in the intervention techniques and monitored, and then we would do the intervention film um, code videos to make sure that that the intervention was working how we thought it would. But over time, as we've kind of progressed, my work has moved more to community settings. So our current project right now that we have has been looking at it's a multi-site study with University of Washington, UMass, Boston, and Rush University Medical Center, looking at training early intervention providers in a caregiver or parent-mediated intervention to really see if we can get early intervention providers to use this approach effectively, and then what is the impact on those families. And I think that's really where we need to go as a field because we have a lot of research to suggest that when we do it in a lab, we get good outcomes.
Yeah.
But then we know that the real world is a lot messier than a research lab.
Yep.
So that's kind of the way my work has been moving.
Are you working with mostly, so like at Michigan State, do you have like graduate students? Is this kind of a graduate level type of where you guys are doing the research, or do you guys have undergrads involved as well?
Yeah, so I definitely have graduate students. I would say graduate students are sort of many of the leaders of the work that we're doing now. So each of my graduate students kind of has their own kind of research question. And sort of that's been really exciting because as I've, as they've kind of graduated and gone out into the field, they've kind of continued on some of this work and brought in totally new ideas that has really enriched our work as well as, bringing new ideas to the field. And then we also have undergraduate researcher assistants that are involved. They often are kind of doing some of the more kind of day-to-day work, helping with assessment of kids, helping recruit families, helping making sure that providers fill out surveys, coding a lot of video. A lot of the way we measure whether or not our interventions are successful require coding video. And so, yeah, so, and it's been really exciting for me to see undergraduates who've gotten involved kind of going on to graduate school and then going out or, going out without graduate school into kind of a more direct clinical role.
How many uh how many people do you think you work with? Like, so you're working on this project right now. How many families are involved in this specific study?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is one of I mean, by far the largest project I've ever worked on. So this is a multi-site study. So we have four separate sites that are collecting data, and we currently have enrolled about 300 families
Okay.
across four different states, and we've enrolled close to 200 providers. So it's a pretty large project, and the hope is that because we have such a large project that in different types of cities in different states that have different early intervention infrastructure, that the data that we get from this project will provide a lot of information to help us roll things out, across different areas.
How does the how does the geographical areas of these studies, do you think there's going to be varying? I mean, you're talking about like Boston. So like Boston's a completely different place than East Lansing, Michigan.
Yes,
Um and you said University of Washington, is Washington in Spokane?
it's in Seattle.
It's in Seattle.
Yeah.
So maybe Washington State's in Spokane, but um yeah, so like it's very different.
Yeah,
Um
it is really different. I mean, we see it's interesting when we look at the sort of the demographics of the providers and the demographics of the families, they vary quite a bit. Michigan, we have a lot more rural families that we've enrolled compared to, Boston, Chicago, Seattle. The demographics of the families are different. A big issue is that the way intervention in the Part C early intervention system is funded and the amount of intervention that's available to families differs quite a bit.
yeah.
Provider background differs to some degree. That even the way in which they're hired is different. So, for example, in Michigan, providers are employees. They're employees of the intermediate school district, and so they typically all not. I mean, this isn't true for everywhere, but they typically all have a clear employee system. They know each other. They have an office to go to. And then in a state like Illinois, they're all independent contractors. They may never see another early intervention provider uh, within the week. And so they don't have day-to-day colleagues where they're sharing ideas. And you can imagine those things might really impact how well you are able to serve your
Oh, yeah.
clients.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's interesting. When you threw out all those areas, it's like there's got to be some variables in there that
Yeah,
are going to be completely different
yeah,
for each location.
yeah. So we're going to look at that and see to what extent those things influence, our outcomes.
Yeah, that's super cool. Um, Anything else that we haven't covered that you want to share about the lab and what you guys are doing? Like maybe some future stuff. How long is this? How long is the current project running for?
Well, we are in our final year. Actually, one of the things that was very interesting about this project is it was funded right at the beginning of COVID. And so we had to retool the whole thing so the whole thing could be implemented virtually. So that's actually been, that was certainly not what we wanted to do. Our plans was to do everything in person, but it's actually made it quite it's been really interesting because all of our assessment for families now has been virtual. So we had to develop a way of putting together a technology kit that we could send to the families' homes so we could record things and we could do a virtual assessment. And our assessments had to be implemented by the caregivers rather than by a clinician in a lab because we had to limit, face-to-face contact. And I feel like we've developed a lot of very cool systems for being able to promote remote training of providers as well as remote assessment of families that I'm really hopeful will make research participation a lot easier and more accessible to a wider variety of participants. Not you don't have to live within
Yeah,
an hour of Michigan State, which is when I started and I was bringing families into my lab. People had to be local. No one's going to drive more than half an hour, 45 minutes. But now we can send the kits. We had enrolled families in the UP of Michigan. So I think that that's one of the things I think has been it was not what we were looking to do, but it's a very cool outcome of having had to do it for COVID. And we're hoping that we'll be able to continue to use some of these more remote processes to do additional research in the future.
Are you guys looking ahead past this program and kind of like what's next after
Yeah,
this is
so I mean,
done?
a lot of a lot of our research, as you probably can imagine, is been grant funded and federally funded. So to be honest, I'm not sure what the funding landscape is looking like right now. So we don't know what sort of the next the likelihood of funding is going forward. But if in fact we still see funding similar types of projects to what's in the past, our hope is to really try to better understand our provider training processes that we developed for this particular project. So we developed a pretty robust um, remote training process to train providers. And one of the big limitations that we find just in the field in general is provider training just tends to not does is not always able to support providers in doing best practice evidence-based work. So our hope is that we can examine how we're training providers, what are the minimum training components that we need, given that the real world infrastructure doesn't really have a lot of time for provider training built into it. So trying to understand how we can use our training protocol in ways that can fit really well and allow for scale up across the early intervention system.
Cool. Yeah, hopefully that all gets figured out and the funding kind of stuff works its way through.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff's kind of been cut, but I hopefully once they get everything organized, it'll be ready to roll. Because
Yep.
we know people that have nonprofits and stuff, and they had significant cuts on their stuff, and but it's all like programs that are good, right? So hopefully
Yeah.
once some of the stuff gets cut, then all the stuff that comes back in is going towards things that are needed.
Yes.
Yeah. So well, cool. I appreciate it. Is there anything else that we should cover?
I don't think so at the moment, but I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. And I think what you guys are doing is very cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, yeah, appreciate you jumping on. And then if you have a few minutes, maybe later today or tomorrow, if you could fire over some of those photos, that would be super awesome.
Sure. And did you want more like a photo of me or a photo of the lab, or what are you looking for?
Photo of the lab stuff.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. If you've got maybe, I don't know, 3 to 5, 6, since it's digital, we
Yeah.
don't really have constraints on page count. So,
Okay.
sometimes I've put in 10 photos, just kind of as if they go
But
along with it, it's great.
just had a question for you, and I don't quite know how all of this works in terms of sort of like publications, but we had an article that was done about our lab and this project through Michigan State. They did kind of like an internal community outreach, kind of glossy. Well, I shouldn't say glossy. It was all digital. It was all online, but it was sort of like a other outreach and engagement. And they did take some photos that I think would be relevant, but I don't know whether that's something that you can publish or whether you need photos that we take and give to you, or whether it's okay that they were taken by MSU and for a different purpose.
I think probably as long as we put a photo credit on it, it's
Okay.
probably fine. Photo taken by whatever it is. I can probably find the article, and then I'll just put photo taken from the Michigan State University. You
Okay.
know,
Great. Well,
we'll
I'll
just
send you,
make
yeah,
sure they get credit for it. Yeah.
sure,
Yep.
sure. So I will do that. If you end up, I'll send that over. And then if you feel like you need more than that, just let me know and we can go in and just take some photos.
Sounds good. Well, I
Okay.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great to talk to you.
You too. All right.
All
Have
right.
a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.